Okay, let's just dive right into this because this is honestly wild. Have you ever asked an AI for career advice and you get a response back that is so generic it's basically useless? You know the kind. Well, you should consider your salary, growth, and interests comprehensively. Gee, thanks. So helpful, right? But what if, instead of that bland, safe response, you could literally install the brain of a specific senior tech expert straight into your AI assistant? Well, today in this explainer, we are unpacking a fascinating open source project called yupi-skill that does exactly that. Here's our game plan for today. 1. The generic AI problem. 2. Distilling a developer's brain. 3. The agent skills architecture. 4. Mental models and rules. 5. Seeing it in action. And 6. Limitations and the future. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the generic AI problem. So standard stock AI almost always gives you this perfectly balanced, non-committal list of pros and cons. Sure, it's safe, but it's totally useless when you have to make a tough call. What you actually need in the real world is expert advice, highly opinionated, incredibly specific, and immediately actionable. And you have to understand, the core reason AI fails here isn't because the model isn't smart enough, it's actually a design choice. General-purpose AI is meticulously calibrated to avoid being wrong, which means it actively avoids being specific. The yupi-skill project totally flips the script on this. It directly injects a specific, documented point of view into the AI, which completely overrides that default wishy-washy safety net. Which brings us nicely to Section 2, distilling a developer's brain. Who are we actually turning into an AI here? Meet Liupi, or as he's known, Programmer Yupi. This isn't just some random guy. He's a former Tencent full-stack engineer and an absolutely massive figure in the Chinese developer community with over 2 million followers. He is the CEO of a tech company, the creator of huge platforms like Codefather and Mianxia, and he's built over 10 products. So we are talking about someone with serious, battle-tested domain expertise in the tech industry. But how do you actually extract that expertise? You don't just write a basic prompt that says, "Hey, act like Yupi." No. This was a highly systematic distillation. They processed 20 of his articles, transcripts from 13 real-world consultations, 3 of his video scripts, and even an internal company document. They basically cross-validated all his viewpoints, his specific work methods, and even stress-tested his decision boundaries with targeted questions. They built a true behavioral profile. Moving right along to Section 3, the agent skills architecture. Let's look under the hood at how this actually works. The absolutely crucial concept here is agent skills. Originally developed by Anthropic, this is a super lightweight open standard. What the yupi-skill does is take that massive decision-making framework, Yupi's expression style, and all his domain knowledge, and packs it into this agent skills format. And it is specifically built for AI agent tools like OpenClaw, Claude Code, and Cursor. It's essentially a plug-and-play module that turns your general AI into a highly specialized domain expert instantly. And the way it loads into something like OpenClaw is just incredibly efficient through a mechanic called progressive disclosure. It happens in 3 steps. First, discovery. The agent only loads the skill's name and a tiny description at startup. That uses hardly any memory. Second, activation. If what you're asking matches that description, then it pulls the main instructions into its context window. And finally, execution. It follows those rules and only pulls in extra reference files if it absolutely needs them to answer your prompt. And if you look at the repository structure, it's beautifully readable. It's literally just markdown files. You've got the main skl.md as the entry point. Then, in the references folder, there's identity.md for his mental models, voice.md for his specific sentence patterns, even his humor style, and knowledge sources.md for real-time data lookup. You literally just clone this folder into your OpenClaw directory and boom. No complex configuration files, no API keys to mess with, the whole shebang is just ready to go. Let's crack open that identity file in Section 4, Mental Models and Rules. To build his digital brain, the developers extracted exactly 7 core mental models. For example, I love this one, secure your floor before chasing your ceiling, meaning always have a fallback plan, or learn what the market needs, not just your personal interests. So when you ask this customized AI a question, it literally filters your problem through these hard-coded philosophies before it even begins to formulate an answer. And beyond those broad models, it has very explicit, rigid decision rules. Things like shipping in 1 month beats planning for 3, or verbal promises don't count, only contracts. It even has strict formatting rules, like demanding conclusions up front. This is brilliant because it forces the AI out of its natural, rambling default state and into this incredibly sharp, decisive communication style. All right, now for the really fun part. Section 5, UP-skill in action. Let's see how this actually plays out.
Take a look at this real test scenario from the source material. A user asks if they should take a 13,000 RMB per month bank outsourcing job offer. Standard AI gives that classic, unhelpful waffle about weighing your options. But the yupi-skill? It gives a direct, punchy verdict. Take it, but don't stop job hunting. Ride the donkey to find a horse. I mean, that is just a fantastic colloquialism. It immediately gives you a grounded, strategic action plan based on the reality of the tech job market.
And it goes even further than that. In that exact same answer, the AI actually pulls from its decision rules to warn the user, specifically stating, verbal promises about a raise in 2 years, treated as background noise, only contracts and facts count. The AI correctly identifies a real-world human risk, a recruiter's verbal promise, and flags it immediately. Why? Because it was explicitly programmed to distrust them based on Yupi's distilled life experiences.
Now, you might be wondering, what if you ask something that requires up-to-date information? Well, instead of relying on a stagnant training data cutoff, the skill uses a live knowledge source mechanism. It actively goes out and searches specific platforms. If you ask about interview prep, it live searches mianxia.com. For resumes, it hits laoyujinli.com. It grounds its answers in real-time, curated data.
Bringing it home now with Section 6, Limitations and the Future. Let's be real for a second. We have to acknowledge the boundaries of this tool. The domain is highly specific to programming within the Chinese tech industry context. The designated knowledge sources are entirely in Chinese, and the salary benchmarks and offer advice inherently assume you are operating in that specific regional job market. Also, the skills mindset is static. It only actually updates when someone manually updates the GitHub repository. So it's an absolute powerhouse for its specific niche, but, definitely don't use it for legal advice or systems programming architecture. But the broader implication of what they've done here is what's truly mind-blowing. The creator actually notes in the docs, everyone is worth being distilled. This isn't just about one famous developer. Think about the colleague skill concept. You could literally take the internal wikis, the Slack chat histories, and the code reviews of your absolute best senior engineer and distill their specific workflow and knowledge into an agent skill. And then that skill just lives inside OpenClaw or Cursor to constantly mentor your entire team.
Which leaves us with a fascinating final thought. We're entering an era where expertise isn't just documented in a boring handbook anymore, it is executable. So the big takeaway from this explainer is that the tools to clone a highly specific thinking process are already here, and they are incredibly lightweight and open source. So I'll leave you with this question. Who will you distill next? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.